Hi there, welcome to key number 4 in 7 keys of a Christ-empowered marriage. Key number 4 is adulting in marriage. You hear a lot about adulting these days. It's a kind of a made-up, coined phrase that talks about, now I have to act like an adult. What does it look like to be an adult in your marriage? You know, God calls us not to be adults to God in our relationship with Him. In fact, in Romans 8, it says that we have been given a spirit of sonship. The very spirit of Christ towards His Father is the spirit that's been indwelt within us. And so we are children of God. And in Matthew 18, verse 3, it says, Jesus with His disciples, it says, in fact, verse 2, it says, He called a little child and had him stand among them. Imagine Jesus surrounded by disciples, and they're all talking about these kind of self-important ideas and what they're going to do and what does ministry look like and where are they going to go next. They're all talking about being very adult in ministry, I suspect. What are we going to do next and where are we going to go? And maybe some of them are talking about taking over Rome or who knows, but they're talking about pretty adult ministry things. And it says in verse 2 that He called a little child and imagine the adults parting ways, and a little child comes to Jesus and He stands the child among them. And He said, quote, I tell you the truth, unless you change, stop acting like you're acting, stop thinking like you're thinking, unless you change, make a choice to do something differently. Unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. It's interesting to think that we can't come to God out of our own competency. We have to come needy to Him. We can't come thinking, I'm going to do these great things for God. That's never going to get us into the economy and fellowship and experience of God's reign in our life, His kingdom. If we want to enter into the kingdom economy of God, we've got to do it as a little child. So the answer to the original question, what does it look like to be adulting in our marriage? It means to be like a little child toward God. When I come to my relationship with God as an adult, like He's the senior manager and I'm the junior partner, but I'm going to get it done, do the Christian life, make it work, make it happen. I'm the guy. When I come out of my competency into the Christian life, then I then have to go to every other venue needy. I've got to be good enough in my marriage. I've got to be good enough in my work. I've got to be good enough in my parenting. I've got to be good enough managing my finances. I have to be competent in every area of my life in order to come to God, not needy. I've got to get my needs met in every other area so that I can come to God out of competency. Listen, if I'm living from my flesh, from my resources, from my competency, from self-competence instead of Christ confidence, what He can do, right? If I'm trying to live from what I can do instead of trusting what only He can do in and through me, then everyone that I meet and every situation I'm in is either an obstacle or an opportunity for me to meet my needs, right? Either my spouse is going to validate my identity or she's going to threaten my identity. Either my circumstances are going to validate how well I'm doing or they're going to invalidate how well I'm doing. But if my identity is in Christ with the Father, if I am loved because He loves me and I'm valued because He values me, then anything that happens in any other situation doesn't invalidate my relationship with God. I can be used in my marriage. My wife can be God's greatest instrument in my life, but she never becomes my source. I never become her source. Because God is the one who is meeting our needs, we can come to one another for whatever He wants to do through us in one another's lives. What would it look like for you to come to your spouse not needing validation or identity from them, not being threatened by maybe a lack of acceptance or validation when they're having a bad day, but instead coming from the overflow of the sufficiency of Christ, who is your source for your marriage, not giving you a marriage so that you can use someone else to meet your needs. If you could live in your marriage from the overflow of Christ's sufficiency, then you can actually become his instrument in one another's lives instead of living needy from one another every single day. The key to being an adult, to adulting in marriage, is being a child of God. Meditate on that, pray about it, talk about what it might mean to live from sufficiency in Christ instead of needy from your marriage and expectations from one another, what that might look like in your conversations, what it might look like in your planning, what that might look like in your allowance of one another to have a bad day or to need something from you. What if God was your source and what he wanted to do through you for your spouse? Would that change the dynamic of maybe seeing a little bit of kingdom economy in your marriage in the days to come? Pray about it, and I'll talk to you again in the next message. Thanks.